Welcome to the Lazy Fluency podcast, where we have casual conversations switching between English and Japanese so you can learn from and with us along the way. I'm Joey.
And I'm Yami.
And the topic of the day is binging. This is a topic that I've been wanting to talk about mainly because of, I'm not sure how many fans of the show JoJo's Bizarre Adventure there are out there, but and this, I'm not going to make the anime the main topic, but this is kind of where the inspiration came from. Is, in short, the series has a lot of seasons, and every season has been aired in kind of one big block, or I'm sorry, not one big block, but like weekly. So like you watch an episode, then the next week you come from the next episode, et cetera, until recently, where Netflix acquired at least the 7th season of JoJo's, and then they released it in big chunks, like Netflix style. They're like, here's 12 episodes, here's the rest of the season, which is like 30 or something episodes. And here's where my plan can play. Oh, go ahead.
ちょっと待ってね。1シーズンに何 ?30 エピソードあるの
It depends. No, JoJo's like changes all the time. My biggest problem is the fact that they made it so now they're, instead of being weekly, they just kind of released it all like basically in massive chunks.
なんかドンと置いてくんだね。
Yeah. And some people who are used to like the Netflix model of releasing things are like, yay, I'm very happy about this because it's a perfect balance for me who likes binging. But I'm here to make a stance about how much I hate binging. Not only for me personally, but like the effects it has on everybody who's forced to be around anybody that binges, and the effect it has on like a community. And this isn't just like anime, this is as well. This can be affected like games or like music or pretty much any medium. But I just off the bat, do you have any thoughts about binging?
ね、これはそのNetflix 見ることについて、それとも全体的な
No, just in general. Well, I mean, you can use Netflix as an example, but like
なんかね、ものによるね。例えば勉強面だったらちょっとビンジングっていうか一気にやるのはちょっと私には向いてないなとは思う。なんでかっていうと、逆に焦っちゃって何も頭に入ってこないから、そのテスト勉強前にガーってやるのはちょっとダメだね。でもそのテストに終わった後にそのたまりにたまったネットフリックスの見たいやつとかをそのガーって見るのは1日か2日ぐらいはいいけど、まあちょっとその長く3日とか毎日ビンジングしてるとちょっとこれしてていいのかなっていうのはなるからどちらかというとグラジュアルのが、自分には向いてるかね。どう、ジョイは。
But so when you binge like on Netflix, how much information do you think you're actually retaining about the show you're watching?
その見るものによるね。例えばさ、なんていうの、ドキュメンタリーとかそういう、なんていうの、ちょっと教育的な感じの見てたら、やっぱり、なんていうの、吸収できる量は限られるから、あんまビンジは効果的じゃないと思うけど、私が見てるのは大体ドラマとか、その、なんか気を休めて見れるから、そんな情報量必要としないんだよね。吸収する。なんか、言っちゃえばなんかどうでもいいからさ。なんか、ただリラックスしてみたいだけだから、そう。なんて言うんだろうね。
Well, I mean, so what you said kind of is you're not prioritizing, like when you're binging, you're not actually focused on getting any information. Is kind of what I took from that.
なんて言うんだろう。そんなめちゃめちゃ集中して見るってわけじゃなくて、まあ、ちょっと流れで見るみたいな感じ。ちょっと言ってることわかるかななんか。
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I would be what they considered a like I'm very active most time. I'm consuming like TVs or movies.
だって考えながら見るんでしょ
Yeah.
そうね。
I think we have some rain. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but if we have rain, we're going to have rain. Yeah, it's not a big deal. But yeah, so my issues with binging, I'll go from a personal perspective, and then I'll go from a larger community perspective. And this kind of depends on what type of person you are, and if you, like you were saying, what you expect to get out of what you're watching. But we'll start with the Netflix example, or with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure here. So personal level, when I'm binging something, especially if like I'm actively binging or actively watching it, or like I'm somebody who does that, I pretty much always forget everything except for the main plot points, unless it was like, I guess, what's the word? I mean, I will obviously remember if I'm really into it in the certain sections, but for the vast majority of the time, I kind of forget names. I forget places. I forget like general, it's not even really general themes. I just kind of remember very big plot points. And in general, when I look back upon the show that I'm trying to remember, it just feels like an instant, like, because I was binging through it, and I have a tendency to just kind of forget its existence entirely. Like, it doesn't really, even if it's a show that made a really big impression on me in the moment, I kind of forget about it, and it happens very quickly.
それは何?
I'm not sure if you have that experience.
一日単位で忘れるってこと?
No. For example, compared to when I'm watching like something, for anime, things tend to air over the course of like 12 weeks. So we have 12 episodes. And then if I watch a show that's only 12 episodes long, but I watch it one episode a week, then I end up with a regardless of how much I guess I like it, but especially if I really like it, I end up with like a long-term impression and memory and kind of like journey with the show. Or like after the episode, I'm able to like think about the episode and then like sit on it. And if there are cliffhangers, I'm able to actually enjoy them. I know some people hate cliffhangers. I actually really like cliffhangers because they just tell me that I really like what I'm watching. That might be a hot take. But when I'm binging, I get almost none of that except for the immediate enjoyment. And then even if I really like the show in the moment, like the impression it would leave on me is much, much smaller, personally speaking.
じゃあ何なんだクリックハンガーじゃなんて言うんだ日本語でなんて言うんだろうね。なんか次回お楽しみにってなんかちょっといいところで終わるやつね。それが、それが好きなんだね。
Yeah, well, it's not just about the cliffhangers, but I like cliffhangers because they make me realize, I'm like, wow, I really like this because I feel frustration.
その感覚が心地いいとかね、そんな感じね。
Yeah, but some people might be saying, well, why are you getting mad at Netflix? You can just decide to watch it slowly on your own. This is a bad argument. No, that's a bad argument. This is the reason why. Anytime something, especially if it's popular or worth watching, it'll have a fan base. And if it has a fan base, and they are all under this problem where if you don't watch it the second it releases, every moment you are online will be just riddled with spoilers. Spoiler, everywhere.
たださ、そういうファンページ見なければいいんじゃないの?
No, it's not about fan pages. Like, especially with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure or anything. Like, if anything is decently big nowadays, it is everywhere. Everywhere. Remember Elden Ring? We were talking about Elden Ring. Like, I was trying so hard to avoid any information on Elden Ring, but the first 3 weeks of its release, anywhere, any video, YouTube, whatever I go to, somebody's dropping information about Elden Ring. It is almost impossible nowadays to avoid information.
あとあれね、友達もさ、なんかさ、めっちゃテキストでさ、言ってきたんだよね。
Yeah, well, that's a second thing. It's well, I mean, I guess this is sort of related, but all the problems I just addressed or I talked about on the individual level also apply to the community as a whole. If you have a show that airs slowly over time for a long period of time, you get a bunch of discussion about each episode, and you get a slow, long build-up and long community, and the community as a whole, or like popular culture as a whole, like society remembers it more. But like when you have things like, let's go back to even Elden Ring or maybe JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that I'm talking about it, when everybody's kind of in this like binge setting, or like you feel like you have to binge or else you're going to miss out spoilers on spoilers from the show, then the community as a whole kind of, they all get really into something for like 0.2 seconds, realistically speaking, like 3 weeks maybe. And then right after that, the all discussion about it dies. Just dies.
はいはいはいはい。なんか、ずっと長続きしてる番組とかはね、ずっと、なんか、水面下で進んでる感じだけど、こういう、一気に流行るやつって、一気に流行って一気になくなるよね。ってことでしょ？
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of one of my, so it's like the show, I mean, I can think of a bunch of specific examples, although I'm not sure how many people even know what I'm talking about, because a lot of my examples have to do with anime. But I mean, Elden Ring is, I think, a good example. Is my friend, one of my friends basically beat the whole game in like under, like it was like 4 days or something from release, and I haven't heard him say a single word about the game since, even though he was like super into it and constantly messaged me. The second he's done, it all just stops.
もうさ、ゴールを、それ、なんかあれだね。なんか、なんだ、なんて言えばいいんだ。いい習慣を、ずっと、なんていうの、ハビットとして続ける時の、なんか心がけとして、ゴールを目標にしちゃダメだって。その間のプロセスを、楽しまないといけないっていう、なんかそういう、やつがあって、それとなんか似てない？一回さ、友達はさ、ゴール、終わらせるっていうゴールを、もう達成しちゃったからもう、その後、ね、やってないってことでしょ？
Yeah, I mean, that definitely relates into it, and I would agree with you on that. But it's like, I'm somebody who, like, for me, who likes enjoying stuff longer over a period of time, both for my, like, long-term memory, my enjoyment, my this is also kind of related to this, but people remember what they have like longer, or what's it, or more like prevalent attachment to, or like something like events that are more what's called emotionally powerful, whether it be very extremely negative or extremely positive. Like with memory, this is something that Vsauce made a video about.
Vsauce.
Yeah, Vsauce. Yeah, and he kind of discusses part of this topic as well in a very good way.
Binging?
So I recommend checking that out. Oh, about time in general.
Illusion of time だっけ?
Yeah. And something that he talks about is the notion, like a lot of time when people look back on what happened within a part of their lifespan, they remember the more similar events are, and the less you can the more monotonous and repetitive an event is, and the less, what's it called, I'll refer to it as like engagement you are actually having with it, the more, like, upon reflection, all the time kind of looks identical. So this is to say, for binging, if you're like kind of brain turned off, because realistically you're not going to be able to really get all the information, and you're just constantly taking input, and you never have any time to reflect and like form a longer establishment or relationship with an idea or show or anything, then it's almost like you're kind of like fast forwarding through experiences, because realistically speaking, you probably won't be able to even remember that much about your experience in hindsight. And to a greater sense, it's kind of almost like you never even played it in the first place, if that makes sense, or like watched it in the first place. If you can't remember it and you don't really have any recollection of it, even like on a like subconscious imprint, then did you really watch the show in the first place? You know what I'm saying?
なんかこれすごい、なんか勉強に関係するね。テスト前にガーってやって何を得たかっていうね。で、テスト終わったらもうすぐに何も忘れるわけでしょ。めっちゃ似てるね。
Yeah, but well, this is basically why I'm really annoyed with Netflix about this specific situation. Because for me, I'm like, okay, so either A, I binge it and ruin kind of my experience with the show because I like experiencing stuff slowly over time for all the reasons I mentioned before, or I don't binge it and basically fall out of all community conversation. And because of the fact that the show was released in a big chunk, chances are there's not going to be that much community conversation in the first place. So it's like, and I know that in terms of Netflix, it probably increases watch time, but it's watch time that doesn't really mean anything, in my opinion. Like it's less efficient watch time, if that makes sense. Like if you in my opinion, like it's kind of like studying, sort of. This kind of might be going to a different thing, but like studying like 20 minutes a day for a year is much more effective than studying like 8 hours a day for like a week or whatever.
そうね。確かに継続は力なりだから。でもさ、思ったけどさ、さっきさ、なんだ、その週に1回見てっていうのをやると、ちょっと、なんだ、キャラクター設定とか忘れるってさっき言ってたじゃん。
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is actually funny because this conversation will sort of continue on the next section, but we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that. But yeah.
だからそういう面だったらなんかベンジングのがそういう面に関しては忘れないのかなとは思った。あとなんだビンジの
well obviously obviously if you take what's it called? It's all about like periods of time of engagement with something. Obviously, it's a kind of a balance. You can't go 5 years. It's like if you're trying to learn a language, you can't like remember one word and then 7 years later remember your second word, or like you're never going to do it at that point. So it's about a balance. My point is just that binging is not that balance.
どってくるからね。
And yeah, the balance probably is between like individuals to decide, but generally speaking, I do not think watching all of something like a TV series, especially with how long American TV series are, in a day or one setting is a reasonable time frame.
1時間近く。ね。
With that said, obviously, go ahead.
何でもいいよ。
Yeah, what I was saying was with what's it called? There are people who obviously are like, oh, I'm just doing it to relax and it shouldn't be something big, whatever. So it's not like I'm forcing anybody to have my same opinion here, but as somebody who's like puts a lot of value into entertainment and creativity and the arts in general, I think it is a shame that binging has become such of a problem. Because even like I said with Elden Ring or other hobbies and things like that, it becomes increasingly difficult to meet anybody or like just know someone who you could have like a longer term conversation about a given thing you both like, because everybody binges it and then the conversation's dead.
確かにね。あれ気づいたら自分だけみたいなね。みんなどこ行ったって。
Yeah. As opposed to like, oh, you know, the newest episode came out. Oh, yeah. What do you think about this and that scene? Yeah, whatever. Like that conversation, and then that conversation every week or whatever over the course of like 3 months, which is 12 episodes, is you end up with a like, oh, this show is actually like served not only like your enjoyment of the show and all the stuff the show had as a takeaway, but then you also have a tangible relationship and like relationship building between you and somebody else discussing the show.
確かにね、そういうのを求めてる側からするとさ、周りはなんていうの、もうなんか火がついてその後すぐ消火活動が起きたみたいにもう何も音沙汰なくなっちゃうからね。寂しくなるよね。
Yeah. I mean, you also kind of tend to lose a lot of information, even like I said, because if you binge it first, you really are only discussing the general, even if you remember it, relatively speaking, just because if you talk, let's say like an entire season of a show, if you're going to start talking to somebody about an entire season of a show, you're basically just going to nail it down to big plot points and very large overarching themes. Versus weekly, you can talk about that, but you can also actually talk about the details in an episode and like smaller nuances and stuff, which are very important, at least to me.
ああね。ビンジすると、なんだ、分数でいう分母が多くなるからさ、なんだ、一瞬を思い出すのに、あれどこだっけってなんか混乱するのはありそう。
Yeah, so this is why I'm gonna, what's it called? I'll end this with a plea. I mean, my plea to Netflix won't do anything, but a plea to the viewers and the general our listener community to give not binging a try, because I am very confident that people will enjoy it more than what's it called? Restraint can be a good thing.
なんか、すべてのことに言えるよね、この binge versus gradual っていうのは。
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, it might come back in other forms. And yeah.
ね、今回は深い話になりそうだ。Okay, so in this section, we are going to talk about time managing. So the reason I want to talk about the reason I want to talk about this is because so I reconsidered what I want to do next year. So and then it turned out that I have tons of things I want to do. So yeah, like
趣味の話ってこと?
Yeah, and also school, like taking a balance between school and like hobbies or that kind of thing. So and then I wanna like I don't want to how do I say sabotage my school.
So
but so at the same time, but it's my duty to study as a student. So like some of you might know that I study medicine at school. So being a med student, it's kind of like, so study time takes up most of my day time. So it's kind of hard to find time to do what I want to do. Like for example, running, reading books, and like tutoring or like part-time job kind of thing. So I want to ask you how you manage your time, because like you're like a pro.
Pro 時間 manager.
Exactly.
時間管理かな。時になんか前の隣人の話に関連してるんだけど、なんか自分の一番やりたいことをなんか最大の時間を与える。で、そのなんかもっと短い趣味とかを継続的にやるのが一番効率的だと思う。それで、なんか読みたかったら1日20分とか30分とか1時間とか何でもいいんだけど、そういう継続的にやるのが一番大事なところポイント。こういうことに関して。
Right.
でもなんかいろんなことをいろんなというのはなんかちょっとたくさんのことを同時にやりたいならちょっと難しくなる。
Yeah, exactly. Like for me, so my school starts from 9 a.m. and then it finishes at around 5, sometimes 4. So like I want to review before the school starts and after school finishes. So like and also I want to exercise often. Like for me it's like I want to exercise every day. So and like that makes me feel so nervous. Like, I don't know how to explain my feelings, but you know what I mean?
どういうところがなんか
Like,
不安になる
if I like exercise every day, that will lead to like failure in school or for exams. So like, should I am I okay to do this?
Yeah,
Or kind of like,
ちょっと
yeah, that kind of
意義あ
thought
り
comes up.
意義あ
Okay.
りまあ何でした運動に関してはそれは絶対間違ってると思う
Oh yeah.
まあ
yeah.
運動しす
I
ぎ
agree that. Yeah.
運動しすなんか毎日5時間とかだったら結構大変なことかもしれないんだけど、まあ毎日30分とか1時間だけだったらそんなに悪い影響を与えないと思う。
Oh, you think so? Cause like
運動することは脳にとって体にとってもすごく大切なことでしょう。
Yeah, I know. Like I want to run 10 kilometers every day next year. And after running, I should take a shower, right? So, and doing other stuff. In total, that would take like 2 hours to finish the whole ritual. So,
Ritual.
like, yeah, like 1 hour running and then a shower and then like preparing for like whatever I'm gonna do next. So that like that will be like 2 hours. So it's not like 1 hour, just 1 hour, but 2 hours. So I'm just like thinking that is this the right thing to do? With like even though I'm in the like exam week or something.
そのシャワーに関する問題はちょっと朝派と夜派の問題だけど、そういうなんかもうすでに朝派だったらあまり問題ないでしょう。なんかどっちにしても毎日1回シャワー浴びるから、でもなんか夜の派だとそのなんか1回は2回になるからOh
well, for me,
So,
like I guess like many Japanese people take showers after they finish work or like in at night. Yeah.
その考え方もわかる。なんか私がちょっとどっちもやるからちょっとなんていうかどっちの方がいいかちょっとわかんないんだけど、まあ夜派だとそういう寝てる間にあまり汚れとかは残らないからちょっと合理的だと思うんだけど、同時に朝に走りたいなら朝に走ってシャワー浴びるのもちょっとセンスがあると思う。
Also, I have this struggle that like I want to study English every day, but like if you really want to be fluent in English, then like everyone says you should immerse yourself in the environment of the language. So like it's kind of hard because like at my school the lectures are taught in Japanese. So like you know what I mean? Like I want to immerse myself into like full English environment. But
まあいっぱいカタカナを使えばどう
No, it's not like that. Like yeah, all lectures in Japanese. Yeah. And then yeah, just like 1 hour every day is I think it's not like it doesn't do anything like you know like
いやちょっと意義ありそれ。いや絶対に an hour a day は経過あるよ。結果。でも同時にその前の趣味の話に戻るとその趣味と言語と同じように、そういうなんていうかもうすでにやっていることを趣味とのつながりができるならそれもちょっと効率的さが増える。
Yeah, exactly.
例えば、This episode is sponsored by Audible. No, it's not. でも、オーディオブックを通してそういうような、なんか読みたいんだけど、時間がないから走りながら本を読めることができるでしょ。
Yeah. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, like since last year. Yeah.
でも多分他の趣味に関しても同じことできるんじゃないかと。
Yes. So like to have how do I say? To have relaxing time, we watch Netflix, right?
We being
Like
みんな
Yeah, or you.
I don't watch Netflix.
Well, yeah, anime, yeah, for you. But yeah, so like I don't want to spend time on doing something useless. Useless? Yeah. So like I try to watch Netflix in English rather than in Japanese so that I can like make most of it. Like since I have like less
これ
time
もちょっ
than
と
yeah.
深い話になるんだけど、それは useless の時間はどういう意味？
Like it's time that you don't get anything from it. Like so if you watch Netflix in your own language, then you won't get like how do I say? If you get information, but you don't get like educational kind of stuff.
やり。
Okay.
私にとってそういうなんかアニメを見る時間は結構楽しむことだけじゃなくていろんなことを学んでると思うんだけど。
But yeah, because you're watching it in Japanese.
いや、英語でもこれは言語の話以外のこと。まあ、でも言語学に関してはあまり意味がないと言えるんだけど、その意味がないというのはちょっと人によると思う。そのなんか何の趣味でも。
Yeah. So because my goal is to study English every day, so I just combine, I just like find the combination that I can like combine. Is that how you say it? Like, so I want to watch Netflix and also I want to study English. So by putting together, then I can like save time. Right?
もう時間、セーブと作れる同時に。
Yeah. Right. So like using the time I saved, I can study or review the school stuff. So yeah. So that's why I want to watch.
これを多分リスナーに聞いた方がいい質問かな。こういうどうやって時間を管理するの。
Because like I've been struggling, with time managing. So
management,
yeah.
そう。
Yeah.
時間管理で大丈夫。
Yeah. 時間管理。Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if there's a pro of time management, then please leave comments below. I mean, like you can send us messages, emails. Yeah. So please.
Spotify とかその Apple Podcast でどうやってそのリスナーの意見をなんていうか集まることができるの？
集める。
なんていうか集める。
So yeah, they can send us emails.
いや、私の場合じゃなくてもっとlazyfluency at gmail.com
Exactly. Yeah? You're saying?
いや、そういうことじゃなくて、なんかその Spotify と Apple Podcast を通してそういうコメントとかできるの？
I guess
ちなみに。
There's no comment section or something. Like on YouTube, there's a comment section, below, but I
Well,
guess
YouTube だけじゃなくて、なんかほとんどのプラットフォーム、なんか、SoundCloud でも、なんていう、オーディオの、ちょっとなんか不思議、Spotify と、Apple Podcast。
Right. I don't think there's no comment sections. Yeah.
うん。ちょっとなんか不思議に思っただけ。
Yeah.
なんかなんでかな。
Yeah, so please, leave us comments. ね。
お願いします。
お願いします。はい。戻ってまいりましたよ。はい。じゃあ最後のセクションは Go back しました。まあ、言語に関することとして、まあ、今回もラントなんですけど、すいませんね、いつもラントで。
I feel like that's part of the appeal.
そっか。
Anger.
そう。
We're trying to get them that notification anxiety from last week.
ちゃんとね、フォローしてくれないとラントしますよ。
But if you do follow us, we'll rant as well. So.
そうだね。まあ、どっちにしろラントしますよ。まあ、とりあえず、ここで話したいのはね、じゃあ私から言うけど、英単語テストは bullshit ということで、なんで英単語テストは bullshit とかっていうと、ですね、私の学校っていうか多分ほとんどの日本の学校そうだと思うんだけど、よく英単語テストで、日本語、まあ、一個の訳で、英単語選ぶとか、英単語一つ出して、日本語訳選ぶみたいな、よくそういうテストがあるんだよ。
Yeah. I actually did, not as the full test, but that also showed up for some like the introduction level Japanese classes.
そう、そんな感じのやつね。で、それはね、bullshit. That is bullshit.
You know what? I agree with you as well.
なんでかっていうとね、なんか、大体、言語って1対1対応じゃないし、大体さ、単語の意味を知ったところでさ、使い方わからなかったら意味ないじゃん。なんか、紙の上で、点と点をつなぐ線だけで、なんていうの？その線はさ、一本じゃないし、使えなかったら意味ないじゃん。ね
Yeah. I mean, there's also the problem with the komorebi problem, where you just have words that don't exist in the other language, or like concepts.
ね、
そういう。Yeah, komorebi is like light shining through the trees or foliage.
そう。で、なんだ、最近、TOEIC とか、なんかそういう、言語の検定っていうのための単語帳みたいな、買ったんだけど、
Yeah.
やっぱね、なんか1対1対応で好きじゃない。わかる？なんか、私が欲しい単語帳は、英語の単語があって、で、definition、定義があって、で、あと使い方がある、なんか、よく Google で打って、下に出てくる感じ。そのフルセットが欲しいのよ。
Yeah. And do you want it in like English to English is what you're saying?
いや、そう。なんか、ある程度のレベルまでいったら、勉強してる言語で、その言語を学ぶ必要があると思うのよ。言ってる意味わかる？
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's definitely important. But what's it called? It's a balance of like efficiency versus accuracy, sort of. Like,
そうね、そう。
because in some way, even like now, because I kind of do both depending on what applications allow me to do. But like in one sense, if you use a word from one language to understand another one, you will probably get some implications or nuances that are slightly different from the original word. But you actually, since you understand the like if the word that you're memorizing is act is fairly close to the original meaning, which for the most words it is, unless it's a very specific cultural context, then you actually save a lot of time of trying to understand what the concept is. Like for example, if you're just trying to learn what box is in Japanese, like hako, if instead of let's say I'm trying to learn the word box, and so one way I could do it is something that says hako, and then it's like, oh, what's this mean? Box. That is very efficient, and I would argue that I'm not losing too much relevant nuance by thinking initially. Granted, now in my head, there's a separation between hako and box because one's Japanese, one's English. But like, I don't think I'm losing that much. But if I do the reverse way, let's say like a Japanese to Japanese, and instead of learning hako as box, I learn hako as a well, I guess I'm in the English section, so I'm not sure if I'm speaking Japanese. But basically, I learn hako as a cuboid object with an open end that you can fit an object into. You're using a lot of mental resources to even figure out what you're talking about.
そう頭の中でイメージできるよね。
Yeah, because you already spent all that time learning what a cuboid that you can fit objects into when you were a baby. That's how you learned box in the first place. So in my opinion, it's really depending on almost the word that whether or not it's more effective or efficient to learn like native language to native language. Oh, sorry, not target language to target language, or learn target language to native language. So like English in your case, or English Japanese. Like if it's something like that's super common and basic, or like general and not culturally specific, then I think for the most part, learning the definition of it in your native language as a way to shortcut the knowledge is actually pretty effective.
そうね、そうね。あと、なんだ。
Definitely not 木漏れ日。Definitely not 木漏れ日。
そうだよね。だって、そもそもその表現がないからね。英語にね。だから、どう説明するかってなった時に、なんか絶対ニュアンス変わるし、そういう言葉に関しては、日本語で勉強するしかないんだよ。逆にね。逆に日本語で勉強するっていう方法しか、もう、なんだ、ない。同じこと2回言っちゃった。
I mean, there's like, what's it called? Another one that I also think is very true, which is food, especially Japanese food. Like the English translations of them are always so incredibly like funny, and nobody would understand what you mean. Like, I feel like that's a big important part of like, learning like a definition for something is like when they're translating it, they're trying to get across the meaning. But part of me also says like, would anybody actually understand what you're saying if you said this? Like, I'm trying to remember which one it was, but a lot of like Japanese dishes and foods, they're like, they're almost overly specific to the point of like almost losing all relevance for the food. So let me think of like maybe oden. Instead of like, in my opinion, like focusing more on the fact that oden is like eaten more like in a winter, like it's kind of like a hot pot-esque thing that's eaten towards winter or something, is way more helpful than being specific about all the ingredients in the oden. And with some dictionaries for like oden, they'll say like, I'm trying to remember all the ingredients in oden, but they'll go through they'll describe like a recipe list, and you can't really even figure out what you're thinking of. You're like, so we have this ingredient and this ingredient, and together they go into a big pot, and then you're like, wait, how am I supposed to use this even? Like, is this like, I don't know. Maybe it's hard to describe what I'm saying.
そうね。だからニュアンスとかさ、cultural なんていうの、バックグラウンドっていうのは、やっぱり。
For example, hot dog. Like in Japanese, if it just said like a breaded meat dish eaten commonly in the America, it's like, what? You're not wrong. There's bread and there's meat, but like, I feel like it's not even the important part that it's a breaded meat dish. Less so than like an event common, or a food commonly eaten at baseball games and other stuff or whatever. Like that goes first, and then like at the end you go, that involves putting a piece of meat between two buns.
はいはいはい。確かにね。
Although fundamentally, I think it might be more effective to learn stuff like that in images as opposed to learning them with words.
確かにね。あとなんだろう。フレーズとかもさ、なんか、 その文脈で覚えた方がいいんだよ。なんかよく日本語の英単語帳とかだってさ、フレーズがあって、横に、日本語訳らしきものがあって、で、ちょっとめっちゃちっちゃい字で、下に、例文がちょっと一文だけあるみたいなね。いやいや、それじゃあ、なんか、それじゃあね、なんか、ちょっとポイントを履き違えてるなっていうのは、個人的な意見ね。その人によってさ、これが自分に合うとかあると思うけど、私にとっては、A で、書いてある単語帳が欲しいです。どうかお願いします。はい。
Well, I think it's funny. Do you think like, is it a job that to make example sentences, or they just grab? Actually, no. It might have to be a job because the thing is, if they want to grab from like completed works or other stuff that already exists, they probably would have to deal with copyright because they're publishing it.
多分じゃあネイティブの人
So now
が
that I
見
think
てんじゃ
about
ない
it, oh no. My point is like when they're making all those like example sentences, in my head I was like, oh, why not just grab a bunch of sentences from like already established stuff? Because something that I kind of find to be true is a lot of example sentences are hilariously either bad or just awkward or something's weird about them, and like maybe it's a situation as a whole. Like let's say it's like eating. It's like, John, don't eat my leg. Sorry, John, I didn't even. It's like, what is it? What is this context? But I think the reason for it is because copyright. Because they'd be like, hey, you used my sentence in The Great Gatsby. You weren't supposed to, like, I don't permit that. Which is, so now it's kind of funny. I wonder, that seems like a kind of fun job, at least to do as part-time, just making example sentences.
ね、あるのかもね。知らないとこであるのかもしれない。
They should make, actually, no, they should make, there should be this probably already exists, but a, like, dictionary where all the definitions, hold up. I think I actually know what this is called. But like a dictionary where all the definitions are meant to be as, like, random and wacky as possible so that they stick in your head, sort of. You know what I'm saying? Or sorry, the example sentences. The example sentences, not the definitions.
確かにね。まあそう。ここで言いたかったのは、そう。学校の英語はちょっと、って感じっていう、って感じってどんな感じだよって感じだけどな。っていうことを言いたかったって感じかな。はい。なんかジョイは、日本語の、ね、ラントある？
Of course. I've rants for years. We'll see. But the rant today is length. Just in general, especially related to Japanese. My teacher, or one of my teachers when I was learning Japanese, said that the longer Japanese gets, the more beautiful it becomes. And the context was we had like a oral test, and anytime she'd ask me a question that was a yes or no, I just go, "Hai." Like if I agreed with the sentence, I'd go, "Hai." And then if I disagreed with the sentence, I'd go, "Yeah." And then at the very end, she told me that sentence, the longer it is, the more beautiful it is. And I was just like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? I was like, I feel like conveying information is very important. That's a very general statement, but I feel like that's a language's main thing. And if you like bake into the language that you want it to be as long as possible so that you can, what's the word? Like you want it to be as long as possible so that it sounds as beautiful as possible as opposed to actually conveying information, then that's kind of a critical flaw. You know what I'm saying?
なんかね、
At least in my opinion.
長いと逆に回りくどくて嫌いなんだけど。なんか、ちゃんとポイント言えよって感じなんだけどな。
Yeah. And like, especially with regarding to like the whole like, what's it called? Like length versus, or what would you call it? Beauty versus like actually conveying information. What's it called? I'm spacing out here for a second, but when I was, like after I was taking this, test and she like was listening back to it, or sorry, not she, but we like, it was recorded and we were able to like listen to it on our own. I'm like, I really didn't have any more thoughts to express. So like, I also kind of in this situation am forced to like come up with like, let's say, like all I want to say is, how do you like bananas? We can go back to our first banana conversation.
Hi, banana.
All that really, I mean, I think a yes or no is fine. Fine is, I think it's okay. But if you just go, hai, then in Japanese, that's rude, I feel like. Right? If somebody just says, like you say.
でも何それさ、English でもルードっていうかなくて、もうちょっと説明欲しいと思わない？
I guess, I mean, I could go like, yeah. You can repeat the sentence back. Yeah, I love bananas.
そういうことね。
So there's some of that. But I'm not talking about the information content. I guess I'm talking about, what's it called? In Japanese, instead of saying like, just, I like bananas, even if you're trying to convey just the same sentence, you putting ambiguity into the length. It's kind of both. I should have mentioned, I guess. It's a mix of ambiguity plus length equals beautiful Japanese. So instead of saying, yes, you liked bananas, like I was saying in my the oral interview where I said height, and that wasn't good enough, instead of height, like do you like bananas, it should be どうなんだろうね。バナナが好きかもしれないんだけど、最近なんていうかバナナについて思ってないから、まあちょっといいんじゃないか。
めちゃめちゃ長い。もうやだわ。
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. And basically, all I said was, they're right, but by saying it in a very long way, somehow that amounts to.
なんでか分かったよ、それ。なんでかっていうと、日本語はさ、あれじゃん。私は何とかが好きですって言うじゃん。動詞が一番最後に来るじゃん。でも、英語だと I like でも下げに来ちゃうからさ、日本語だと長く聞こえるんだよ。どうしても。っていうのも一つ関係しない？
Does this have to do? I remember seeing a Japanese comment about I don't know where was this, like a YouTube comment or something, where somebody was pointing out in somebody's sentence, it was kind of like a flame war battle in the comment sections, and they said like the Japanese person said like just what they believed and then ended it in tomo, and then the other guy replied with like, what kind of, like, are you like an elementary school who ends their sentences with tomo? You're not supposed to say, you can't say tomo. It has to be like deshou ne or nandarou ne or deshou ka ne. You know what I'm saying?
何その和らげないといけないの?
Well, I think that is probably because I didn't see why he said that, but in my head I just thought that I'm like, your language is praising being more ambiguous and longer. Like realistically speaking, and this might, I mean, I haven't thought this too much about English, so there's a chance this might be the case with English, but I feel like English is a very literal language. So like, and especially when I would like learned English in school, even though whatever native speaker, but like, you know, I'm saying like English classes, just like Japanese classes. At school, part of like good writing is reducing as much as possible.
それめっちゃさ、私の学校の先生に言いたいんだけどさ、なんか私の学校のなんか宿題じゃん、課題かとかレポートとかでさ、何文字まで書かないといけないみたいなのあって、で、紙を3枚埋めないといけないみたいな、そういうのあってさ、だってポイントでさ絞ってさ短くした方が絶対わかりやすいのにさ、3枚埋めないとダメだからっつって再提出になったんだよ。
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. I mean, I hate that as well.
So
yeah. Well, I mean, there's still page requirements in English, so that's why it's even more painful for writing. Maybe not more painful, whatever. I've never been a Japanese student writing essays, but what I can find increasingly frustrating is they're like, no, it has to be 3 pages, but you must try to condense everything as physically possible. Like it needs to be as small as possible. And you need to remove. So I'm like, I need to get to 3 pages, but then at the same time, you know that if like it's very difficult to have 3 pages of only necessary and extremely important stuff,
そう。
especially if you don't really care about what you're writing about.
だからしょうがないからさ、なんか似たようなことをさ、タラタラ同じこと書いてたんだよ。意味なくない
Yeah,
それ。
no,
なん
no,
か
yeah, exactly.
的ずれてるよね。
There was a similar situation with a professor, Japanese or professor American who teaches Japanese. Well, I mean, American professor who's also a Japanese professor at times who taught me in a class in Japan. Who was saying when she was working for a Japanese company, and she had to do a report. I think it was like a scientific report or something, maybe related to linguistics. That the report was turned down, like it didn't get accepted.
なんで
And she didn't. Well, she said, she didn't. I think get exactly why it wasn't accepted. But all she did, she wrote it like American style, where you like make the point that you're trying, the thesis statement. You make it in the first paragraph, so you know what you're talking about, and you put like your conclusion that you're going to work towards. And then all she did was move that opening paragraph to the last paragraph instead of the beginning paragraph, and then it was accepted.
ほ
Which I find hilarious. As in, I think so. Then her implication was, she's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the reason it wasn't accepted is because it was too direct, and it didn't seem like, especially if it's a research. Like she's telling me, well, I think what they wanted to make it seem like it was a big journey and I had to get to this conclusion, and then but when I just put it at the very beginning and put the results there, then it doesn't sound as cool or as as much of
短いと
a
やっぱあれ
struggle.
なんだね。その、あんまり称えられないっていうか。なんで
Well,
長いの
it was the
好きなの
same length. It was the same. It was the same length. But to get to the point was moved all the way to the the end of the paper as opposed to the beginning.
じゃあその分さ、ポイントは短くなったってこと？同じ長さだった
No. She took the same. So, oh yeah. I'm saying like the thesis statement saying, like thesis, like in English, you kind of have like, when you're doing an essay or most sorts, you kind of have the opening introduction sentence, like a through line or a couple through line sentences, or not through line, connecting sentences that establish what sources you're talking about. And then you have your thesis statement. That's like, let's talk about bananas. Bananas are the greatest fruit in the world. After looking over studies from blank XXX different study, we can see that bananas have led to to saving millions of lives. And that's why I'm going to argue that bananas, or I guess it'd be more specifically, because bananas are healthier, whatever, sexier, as I said earlier, I'm going to argue that bananas are the best thing and that you should be eating a banana every day. That's kind of like, well, a bad example, but sort of how like you're taught to do like intro statements. But she basically just put that opening statement, so same length of the whole paper, but she just threw it at the bottom.
ああ。まあ普通にね、早く get to the point してほしいけどね、個人的には。だから、分かった。だからさ、私さ、日本語の文章読むの下手なんだ。なんか全然意味わかんないもん。
Well, I think we're going a little long, so we might end it on that thing. But please be concise in the comment sections. Do it for me, so that we can't stand.
共感した人とかいたらね、はい、ぜひぜひメッセージ送ってください。本当に、お願いします。
お願いします。That bell means we've reached the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us in another lazy conversation towards fluency. If you have any language-related questions and or are just looking for general advice, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com and we might respond in the next episode. Also, make sure to check out our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. We'd appreciate the support. This has been Joey.
And Ayami.
Signing off. じゃあねー。
じゃあねー。
Bye bye.
メール送ってね。コメントね。